Welcome back to my channel, everybody, and today we're going to be talking about a prog rock band, and I'm going to be ranking their discography to my personal taste. And this band is Gentle Giant. Now, I have ranked several artists and bands discographies. I've done metal, I've done prog, I've done psychedelic, but this is a progressive rock band that is not as well known in mainstream circles as the bands that I've already ranked their albums. They're not as popular as Yes, they're not as popular as Pink Floyd or Genesis, and not even King Crimson. But I would describe them as a mixture of elements of several prog bands and several rock bands. They have a lot of vocal layering that's reminiscent of Queen. I think their lead vocalist sounds a bit like Peter Gabriel. Um, they they rival King Crimson when it comes to musical talent and musicianship. Just extremely incredible musicianship. Um, and they use a lot, like I said, of the vocal harmonies and layerings. So they're a very eclectic band, and they may not be as accessible to get into as some of these other bands. But I'm going to rank their albums today. Um, Again, this is a band that gets into all kinds of stuff. I'm talking about chamber music, medieval vocal patterns, jazz, all kinds of things. But they also rock out as well. So let's go ahead and begin the countdown. Now, my least favorite Gentle Giant album is called Giant for a Day. Now, this album is more mainstream, and when I say mainstream, I mean it is easier for the mainstream audience to accept. It's more accessible, in other words. But to me, there's nothing really that stands out on this album. I consider it to be Gentle Giant's weakest effort. It's not really memorable at all. You might could put it on in a background or something. It just doesn't do much for me. And it does rank at the bottom of many people's lists because maybe they didn't put as much into it. I don't know. I hate to ever say that about an artist because, playing music, sometimes you put your heart and soul in stuff, and people are like, oh, that's not as good as the last thing you did. And, it's just, but, we feel sometimes that people phone it in. So that's what, the criteria we use. So, Giant for a Day. Next is going to be the 1980s album Civilian. Several bands in the 80s, several prog bands changed. Some went new wave, some went just complete straight pop. But, some still had a little prog elements, like King Crimson still had prog elements with Discipline and Beat and Three of a Perfect Pair. Pink Floyd still had some prog elements, even with Momentary Lapse of Reason. But Civilian was, again, an 80s album, 80s production. It was Gentle Giant adapting to the times. It's not a bad album, for a pop album. It's just not Gentle Giant to me. I'm just, it's better than Giant for a Day, but, that's not saying much. So moving on is The Missing Piece. This one's better than Civilian. It's a little bit more proggy, sounds a little bit more like Gentle Giant, a little bit more of a rocker. Got some good tracks on there. Memories is a good one. For Nobody's okay. I like that as well. But yeah, there's a few decent tracks on it. It's just not really a standout album. So next is going to be Interview. This one's hard for me because when I first heard it, it just didn't really do anything for me. Then I kind of understood the concept, and that helped a little bit. it's basically about, the media interviewing people just with these empty questions, the same questions over and over and over, and it just drives people crazy. So, but yeah, this one very complex again. King Crimson, Gentle Giant. I don't know why I keep thinking the musicianship reminds me so much of King Crimson, but yeah, again, you've got um, very playful, but kind of off-putting to a degree. Again, intricate arrangements on this one, not as much as others. I like Empty City. I like Give It Back. Turning. I like about 3, maybe 4 songs off this album. It's okay. Moving on. Next is The Power and the Glory. This one is bombastic in certain extent, very operatic, or theatrical, maybe I should say is a better word for it. Again, you still got that Gentle Giant quirkiness. It's very eclectic again, very multifarious. Just, I don't know how to describe it. But it has, it's a powerful album. I enjoy it. Some of the songs that I enjoy from this album would be, I like No God's a Man. I like The Face. So it's a solid album. And that's kind of where I put it midway, mid-range. Next is In a Glass House. These boys went to music school on this one. I really enjoy the compositions and the arrangements. The patterns on it, very, very intricate and complex. And I know I keep using these same adjectives, but that's exactly what they're so innovative with what they do. And this one is like, it's almost like the next album I'm going to talk to. It's like an assault on the senses, on the mind in some ways. A lot of intermixing of, there's a lot of change ups. Just, it's very, very complex, just like the next album I'm about to mention. I like the next album a little bit more than this album. That's why it's ranked a little bit less. But I pretty much enjoy most of the songs off this album. I really like Inmate's Lullaby. But yeah, I can listen to most of this album. Coming in at number 5, I think. I think that's where we're at, 5. Octopus. I would have ranked this a little bit higher, but this album is extremely inaccessible to, I would say, the mainstream. It's just so out there, and the change-ups in it, and just, again, it's quirky and playful in a way, but it's just so like a kaleidoscope of just movements and everything just going on in this album. That, again, it's almost like In a Glass House in that way. The musicianship is just incredibly top-notch, but I just don't feel like that it's that appealing as far as accessibility. Not that that's a major thing for me, but sometimes, there is a track on here called Knots, and that's what your brain feels like after listening to Octopus. But for some reason, I like that. So there you have it. Coming in at number 4 is going to be Three Friends. At first, I didn't really care for this album. I thought it was mundane. But the more I listened to it, the more I appreciated it. I really like Working All Day. School Days is an epic. I enjoy every song off this album, with possibly one exception maybe. But it grew on me. It's one of those albums that, you listen to the first time, you're like, but then it grows on you. That's Three Friends for me. And who knows, it might keep growing and surpass the next few albums. But I would recommend that to a progressive rock fan, not necessarily to your average layman, your average mainstream listener. A lot of this stuff, the mainstream person who just likes regular rock, regular pop, you're not going to like this. But a musician or someone who appreciates more complex forms of music or progressive music, you'll probably like Gentle Giant if you don't already. So let's move to the next one. Next one is called Acquiring the Taste. And I really enjoy the first couple of songs, or I almost say the first 3 songs the best, but I really enjoy the Black Cat as well, close to the end. I can turn this album on and listen to it all the way through. It is accessible. As accessible as you could probably get with Gentle Giant. And the next 2 albums would be too, but Acquiring the Taste is, it has melodic moments in it. There's just so much going on. Again, I know I keep repeating that, but I mean, they are so just out there with everything. Like I said, it's almost like you're on some sort of kaleidoscope ride with all this stuff going on. Just it's organized chaos in a way. But there's moments of peace, there's moments of chaos, there's moments of jaunty little quirky playfulness, there's rocking moments, I mean everything. So Acquiring the Taste. Getting up there, and number 2 is going to be their debut album, Gentle Giant. This was a game changer. Nobody sounded like Gentle Giant. I mean, they had elements of different bands, but I mean, this album to me is, again, I enjoy Acquiring the Taste and Three Friends, but I can just listen to the debut album and appreciate it so much. Again, it's as accessible as Gentle Giant gets, but it's, again, complex compositions, arrangements. It's just everything that they were going to become, they already were on the first album, on the debut album. You've got Nothing at All, you've got Funny Ways, you've got Alucard, you've got Why Not. I mean, I can go down the line with this. It is a incredible listen. It is a great progressive rock album. I consider it an essential progressive rock album. I don't know, there's just something about that debut album to me. But it doesn't take my number 1 spot. My number 1 spot's going to go to the album Freehand. I love this album. It's very accessible, I think. Again, as far as Gentle Giant goes, but it is more. It has everything. It has the complexity of Gentle Giant. It has the quirkiness of Gentle Giant. It has the vocal layering. It has rock. It has a jazzy. I mean, it's got everything. But yet, I consider it probably to be the most accessible Gentle Giant album as well. So it's not only ranked very high amongst lovers of progressive rock and complex music, but also there are people out there that could listen to this in a mainstream because it does have pop and rock elements as well. But it is my favorite Gentle Giant album. I love this album. It is it's definitely one of my top 20 favorite albums of all time. I completely appreciate this album, and every inch, every minute, every second of talent that's put into this album, Freehand. So there you have it, my rankings of Gentle Giant's discography. If you don't know Gentle Giant, I would recommend Freehand or the debut album to try to get a taste of them. They might not be what as their album title is called, Acquiring the Taste. That's kind of what you got to do with this band. But you might appreciate them, you might not. Anyways, that's it, guys. I appreciate you guys listening to me, And give it a thumbs up if you liked it. Tell me a little bit more about what you think of Gentle Giant. And until next time, you guys take care.